Welcome to the Warband, a World of Warcraft podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Swaglock, and with me today is my co-host, Chicken.
Hey, what's going on? You know, this is the first time that we've filmed the podcast that I haven't seen you in the same day, like in person.
That is, yeah.
Actually, no, this is the second time, and we've only filmed 2 episodes. I don't know why. I was like, wait, we filmed this on a Sunday, and I always see you on Sunday, but we didn't see each other today.
No, right. It sounds like we got 50-50 podcast odds. I am proud of us, though, that we are doing the podcast 2 weeks in a row. I know that was like the plan to do every week, but definitely kind of get nervous when you make an every week plan because you just don't know if it's going to work out.
Oh my
goodness!
Hopefully
it continues working out. But Chicken, I want to ask, man, dude, what have you been up to this week? Anything exciting?
Not really. You know, I played some World of Warcraft. You know, we had our first raid week. That was pretty fun.
That was.
And yeah, not really much of anything. Did some work around the house, you know, as always, you know, that homeowner life. And, you know, spent some time with my family. And yeah, this is a pretty uneventful week, to be honest. So, well, okay, other than heroic raid, let's be honest, but yeah,
I think you and I think have a little differing opinions on raid this week, but it was fun.
Yeah, we definitely have different opinions.
Yeah, I mean, for the people listening, I am a fiend when it comes to like prog raiding. There's nothing I love more than going into a boss fight and not completing that boss fight. I mean, I love completing the boss fight, but when I raid and we like clear out the first 5 bosses in the first night, I don't like that. I mean, you get loot, and everybody loves loot. But part of me loves to watch those small incremental changes, right? We were stuck on the second boss in heroic. We skipped normal with our raid team this season. It's our first time ever doing it. So for the first time ever, we didn't clear normal first. We went right into heroic. And we got the first boss down, first pull. It took a little bit, but we got him down first pull. We get to the second boss. We do not finish them that night. I think we got close-ish, maybe around the 60% mark. And then the second night, we got him all the way down to 12%. Now, somebody in the raid kind of screwed it up and wiped us at the end. I'm not going to name names, but it was me. I did it. I messed that one up. But I love that. Like, there's something I love about walking away from that night going, okay, we got him from like the 60-point mark to the 12% mark. We have it next week. Like the next time we come in here, there's no way we don't kill this guy, especially with more gear. And I think too. So 100%. This week's for me was a weird one, Chicken, just because I was out of town this whole weekend, so I wasn't able to play as much as I wanted to, which is kind of a bummer. But it was my sister's wedding, and it was beautiful. We went up to New York, and it was just like gorgeous on the Finger Lakes, watching everything. Don't get us copyright strikes, man. We gotta be careful there. But it was a beautiful wedding, but man, I didn't get to play WoW as much as I wanted to. But the little bit of WoW I did play this week was actually kind of an experience for me. So our raid leader had to step aside for these 2 weeks, just some life stuff going on. I think he's traveling even as well, potentially. And so I had to step in, fill in as raid leader. And dude, man, it is nerve-wracking raid leading when you have like 30 people in the group and you're trying to make everybody happy. Goodness. Right? Like you're trying to just make sure everybody's having a good time, everybody's experiencing what they want to experience. Even in this conversation, right? Like I love that we pushed heroic, but I know in conversations with you, you were like, dude, I wish we just did normal so we can get some gear and then come in next week and really be ready for heroic. And so it's hard to like appease every single person and make everybody happy. But dude, we had a blast. Yeah, we had a blast. It was a new experience for me. This week trying to prepare everybody and send like notes out and create expectations. I'm just like, oh, I'm ready for our raid leader Lex to come back and take the reins again. But it's been good. I think overall, right, we're in this heroic week, which is traditionally heroic week in WoW is like the raid comes out, but the mythic version of the raid doesn't come out. So that way guilds that push mythic have 1 week where they don't have to worry about touching mythic, right? Race to Worlds First can just focus on doing heroic splits or whatever they want to do during that season or during that week to gear up, and then the next week go into Mythic. However, what's unique is Mythic plus dungeons aren't even open this week. So it's only like heroic raid as a max, and then you have Mythic 0 dungeons, and you have delves, which I don't know what the delves technically scale up to. It might be all the way up. I've only been doing them at the +8 level just to get the gear and get the vault slots that I want, which has been really good. But How are you? How are you kind of liking this heroic week?
Yeah, it's been good. I mean, we've really been grinding those delves because if you weren't aware, unfortunately, you might only have maybe a couple hours, depending on when this actually goes goes live, to get those delves in. But those were, the best vault slot you could get this week. So
Yeah.
we were really grinding those, and personally, I didn't think they were too bad to do solos. Like I did eights fine on my
What
own. Like
spec were you running them solo?
I was doing blood, and maybe
Okay,
that's
yeah,
why they were
that'll
a
do
little
it.
bit easier.
Yeah, I have
So
no problem doing blood. At like in the delves. I've heard
yeah,
other specs are a lot harder. I've heard it gets way easier if you just pull a healer with you. Like if you get a second player to heal,
oh gotcha.
that makes it a lot easier. But then also
Yeah,
today I was reading about some players like a dude playing Ret, under geared, doing eights on Ret, no problem whatsoever. So it's really hard to tell. And there's been
yeah,
a lot of controversy this week around delves, even in our
yeah.
circles of
Oh
just
my goodness.
debate and whatnot about what delves should be like. So what happened this week was delves released. And when they released, they were, for the most part, they weren't too bad. Like, they weren't too bad. People were pushing up the eights. And then players found, wait a second, if I pull a second player into my delve group, all of a sudden the delves become way easier. And it wasn't like, oh, I have a second person here. There's two of us doing it. The tuning of the dungeon actually screwed up and made the mobs easier. So, like, I think they had, like, less health and did less damage if you had a
Yeah.
second person.
Oh
It,
yeah,
it
yeah,
worked backwards. I don't know why it was working backwards, but worked backwards. Blizzard came back, retuned, made everything even harder. And that's kind of where the conversation's coming in, because players who were
yeah.
previously having no problem clearing this stuff out now all of a sudden are really struggling clearing it. Now, you and I, as blood DKs, as tanks, really don't feel that pressure all
No,
too much. I know people
not
who
a
were running
little bit.
tanks through it, I think like 70 eye levels below what was recommended. They were doing like eights
Oh my
at
goodness.
like 530 eye level or something. So
Holy
yeah.
cow.
So it really changes. But the fascinating thing, and I think where the debate and the argument kind of came up this week for us, was ultimately like, what is the appropriate like difficulty of a delve, and the factors that play into that
Yeah.
are the fact that, right, the gear that it gives out is kind of like on par with heroic gear. And so you're asking the question of like, should it be more difficult than heroic? Should it be less difficult than heroic? What are people's experiences with that? Does it actually feel on par? Like if you and I are soloing it, well, that doesn't feel
hmm
on par with heroic.
No, it
But if
doesn't.
another
Not even
player
a
is
little bit.
going in with like just as a healer and they can't kill anything, right? And they're struggling, well, that also doesn't feel on par with heroic, but
No, it
but
doesn't.
in the
Yeah.
opposite direction. So that's where I think a lot of the tension lies. But there's also another part of the conversation that has to be asked. It is the first week that we're able to push this high in delves, right? So last week I think what they capped at 3. I think level 3 delves
Yes.
was the
It
cap.
was capped at threes.
Yes. So the question is,
Now they're not capped at all.
are delves so easy right now that they'll be pointless content in a week or two?
Well, I don't want to be the one that says yes, but personally, I think it's going to lean that way. And one thing that I do want to clarify is when you said doing it with another person, we mean like physically another person, not like your companion
Oh yeah,
person
brand doesn't
that you,
count. Brand doesn't
that you
count.
can bring along.
No,
I
no.
mean physically bringing, like it'd be like if me and Swag ran a Delves together,
Yep.
and it would be
It
like
would
so
rescale
much
different.
easier.
It would rescale
Yeah.
differently. Right. But
And that's crazy that they let that happen. Let's be honest.
yeah. And the question too, though, that I'm asking myself right now and kind of asking around about is, if delves, like, right, because I think a lot of players are feeling frustrated that they can't complete delves as easily as they think they should right now, or even are struggling on some of the higher level delves to complete them at all, like
Yeah.
finish them in any way. And the question I'm asking is, if you can complete delves in their entirety this week, right? Mythic Plus isn't even out yet. Mythic Raid's not out yet. The delves have only been out and available for 1 week. If you're already completing them this week, are delves tuned wrong? Right? Because ultimately you
Yeah.
should not be able to. If I was working for Blizzard, regardless of the gear that they give out, right? Maybe you can make them give out better gear. I don't know. I don't know.
hmm
But I don't think anybody should be like completing 8s or higher this week. I just don't think
No.
that should be possible, because
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
say what you're saying.
Yeah, they're tuned for the. Well, at least they say they're tuned for 600 plus eye level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but
So,
people are doing them way lower than 600 plus eye level.
oh my goodness, dude, I was like 580.
Mm-hmm. But also think
Like,
about the implications, right? Because Blizzard's trying to create this new type of content that should be should be desirable to do for the rest of the expansion. But if people are already completing it on their own, and my opinion, by the way, my opinion on delves is I actually do think delves should be easier in groups. WoW at the end of the day is an MMO game, right? Like the intent of WoW is that you're playing with other people.
Well, that's true.
But they need to be designed in a way where it's better with people. But if you don't want to do it with people, that like it is still doable without people, right? Like you can still do it and complete it, but maybe you have an easier experience if you bring friends in. Because I do think the game should always primarily focus on rewarding you for building community in WoW. But again, there are moments where the community in WoW kind of sucks, dude. Right? Like people.
Yeah, it does.
Have you had the problem with Arakara yet?
No.
So players are going into Arakara, which they were doing this on Heroic, and it was a problem. But now they're doing it in Mythic, where they would go into Arakara, City of Echoes. They would kill the first boss. I think they get like the trinket, like the sack or whatever, and then they just leave. And all of a sudden, now you have this Mythic Zero group that's like, hey, anybody want to do this dungeon? But the first boss that everybody wants to kill is already killed, and they're just stuck. They're just nobody wants to go in that dungeon. All of a sudden, you are now locked out of that dungeon for the rest of the day because somebody decided they wanted to get one item and leave. And people are going to argue, like, well, I don't need to waste my time. I just want that one item. However, you are now locking somebody else out from that dungeon, from that vault slot, just because you wanted one item and you weren't upfront about it. You weren't willing to say, hey, I'm only staying through the first boss. Is that okay with you guys? Instead, you tricked them. You lied. You implied that you're going to be staying for the whole fight or for the whole dungeon, and then you left. That just, so sometimes the WoW community kind of sucks a little bit.
They're jerks.
Yeah.
And not because that's something I totally did earlier today, but everyone else is just jerks.
Wait. Did you dungeon dip earlier?
So this is like completely unrelated. I joined an arc. Oh gosh, this sounds terrible.
All right, breaking news right here on the Warband podcast. Chicken is about to implicate himself.
Oh my goodness. I'm like adding myself right now. We're going to get canceled because I did this.
Yep.
I put in a Stromboli and I was like, I'm just going to like run this dungeon real quick. And it was going to take like 20 minutes to cook. I was like, there's no way we can't get this done.
Just a quick clarification. Chick and I are both Philly guys, and Strombolis are like kind of our version of the calzone around here. It's better. It's better. Okay, just want to clarify. It's better.
It was a pretty good bully.
Yeah, dude, Strombolis are phenomenal.
It was a Philly cheesesteak bully.
Oh, dude, I love cheesesteak Strombolis.
I know, dude. It was so good.
All right, but anyways, back to the story. So you queue for Arakara, your Strombolis in the oven.
Yeah, so I queue for it, and it was like they automatically like took me. Obviously, it was a group that needed just a tank, and so we got in there, and I'm like pulling relatively big packs, and it's taking a while to get them down, and I'm like, okay, no big deal. And we wipe on the first boss 3 times, and after the 3rd time, I'm like, listen, guys, like you got to kill these ads. Like, what are we doing? And then I look at the raid lead, and he's like, he might have been like 550 eye level. Most of his gear was like stuff from last expansion.
Yeah.
And I was like, seriously, like, why? Like, I hate people that just queue to get carried. Like, oh my goodness, that annoys me more than anything. Yep. We finally got the boss down, and guess who got the trinket? I was not very happy. I heard my timer for my bully go off, and I was like, okay, sorry, guys.
I'm out. You know what? Yeah. Listen, dude.
I was not happy at all. Like, oh my goodness.
Man, dude, that's kind of a jerk play. That's like...
It was...
But it kind of reminds me of the dude who only logs in for raid, right? Like, they only log in for raid. But then the raid leader feels obligated to give them all the gear because they're the lowest eye level. But they're the lowest eye level because they're not putting any work in. And so you're sitting there, you're looking at the damage meters, and you're like, dude, literally the healer's doing more damage than this guy right now. Oh, dude,
he was. Like, I was like, bro, this party lead is doing like no DPS. I was so frustrated.
Right. Healers do more damage, and then all of a sudden the DPS trinket drops, and the guy's like, I need it. But
Yeah, and I'm
it is
like,
personal loot
oh,
though. It's personal loot, so got the luck of the
it
draw on that
is.
one.
It was a poor decision on my mark, but at the same time, like, I mean, to your point, that was literally the only thing I needed from that dungeon. Like, I did not need any other loot from that dungeon. Literally every other piece of loot would have not been an upgrade for me. So I was like,
Yeah.
I mean, it sucks, but like right now, like you're in such a grind to get good loot that and like for me personally, like I don't have a ton of time to play WoW. Like I got a kid. Like I love spending time with my family and like when my kid's sleeping is when I get to play a lot of WoW.
Yeah.
And I was like, it doesn't make sense for me to grind the rest of this dungeon to get loot that I don't need.
Yeah.
So I was like, I know this kind of sucks and you know, I'm adding to your like, wow, people suck, like they're the worst. Like that was me today.
I mean,
and
but
I'll take the bullet.
when the Stromboli's in the oven, what can you do about it, right? Like,
Yeah,
you're
that's
stuck.
fair.
You're stuck. You got to get that Stromboli out. Oh my
It's just funny because you were like, people suck and this is why they do this. And I was like, oh, I did that today.
Because the thing is, too, it was like people were talking about it last week, and it was funny last week because last week it was like, oh, hey, I queued for a heroic dungeon, and then somebody left halfway through the heroic dungeon. And you're like, okay, cool, but also you just hit the Q button again, and it just slaps somebody in there for you, right?
That one, yeah.
That one's not as bad. It's a little bit harder, too, because now you're also locked out from Arakara, so, like, you can't really go back into Arakara unless you, like, get through that boss again without getting loot. Which, I mean, maybe you want to do it. I don't know. That's up to you. And they did make the change this week where the lockout is every day for M0 instead of, I think, once a week, which is probably a good change. It means more gear because obviously M0 drops a lot more gear than M Plus does, right? M Plus has a chance at one piece, but M0 you might be getting like 3 pieces of gear or something wild.
Oh, yeah.
However, I do think it's a good move, especially for players who maybe don't like the timer, right? They don't want to be dealing with the timer. It probably feels bad to be like, oh, I did my dungeons today, or this week, I'm done until next Tuesday. I can't do them ever again. While M Plus players are like slamming them all day long, every day.
Yeah, that I am glad that they did that. I think that was a good change on their part. It kind of, you're right. I mean, some people just don't like a timer, and to be honest, I really think the changes they made to Dungeons last expansion on the last season, I think that was like probably one of the best updates I think to Dungeons they've done since I've played the game.
Absolutely. I think Dungeons overall, content overall, the War Within across the board just feels so much better to me. I will admit tuning on some stuff feels weird. Like Delves still, as we talked earlier, doesn't feel like they know what they're doing tuning wise.
No, yeah.
Some of the dungeons feel a little odd tuning wise, so that's
harder.
Concerning. Yeah, they feel across the board. I mean, especially the dungeons that are not in the Mythic pool, they for sure feel like weird. But the ones that are in the Mythic pool, you know, there's some hit or miss. Dawnbreaker is kind of buggy even. Like, you'll load into Dawnbreaker and the ship won't even show up. And everyone else is standing on it and you try to walk on it and you just fall through. So there's some weird stuff still going on. A little buggy here and there.
Oh yeah, there's definitely like some motion sickness going on with Dawnbreaker too. Like when you fly off the ship and it's like, oh my goodness. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it latches you, right? So you're like latched into the movement of the ship.
Yeah.
And so you're trying to fly, but then sometimes it doesn't latch you. So sometimes you're sliding a little bit. It's hard. It's weird. It's not always consistent in whether or not you move with the ship or move apart from the ship. And I don't know if it's because sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, or if it's because there's like a certain way that if you're far enough off the floor of the ship, it just stops applying to you automatically. I don't know.
Is that the first time there's ever been like a mechanic like that in a dungeon?
You know, I'm trying to think. I mean, there are like, obviously you think back in Cataclysm, you didn't play back then, but there was a raid, Dragon Soul, I think it was. But there's a raid where you're fighting, what's his name? Why am I forgetting? Big Dragon, Cataclysm, Neltharion, Deathbringer, Death Doom Walker, Deathwing.
Dude, don't ask me.
Oh my gosh, Deathwing. I don't know why I was blanking on Deathwing's name, which, by the way, they're bringing back the Deathwing mount.
Dude,
for the anniversary 20th anniversary event. But anyways, what I was trying to say though, is you're kind of on top of him while he's flying around and you're stabbing his neck. It was a terrible fight. I hate going back and farming it, even still to this day. It's a bad fight. But that one was kind of like that. But one that you're on something moving and then have to go fly off of it, that is brand new. And to Blizzard's credit, yeah, it's a little buggy, but dang, that it feels so cool. Like it really does feel really cool when you're doing Dawnbreaker.
Yeah, it's. I think it's a cool dungeon, and like to that topic, I mean, it is one of the ones going into this next pool. Like out of those 8, what do you think your favorite is?
Ooh, yeah. If I was to do my favorite, and you know what? Well, we can throw it in there like least favorite too, right? If I was gonna do my favorite and my least favorite, man, we just. I hate to say it after what we just talked about, but I actually think Dawnbreaker might be my favorite in the pool.
Really?
Yeah. I think Dawnbreaker might be my favorite. Now, it's a controversial one, but maybe my runner-up might be Mists. I do like Mists.
Wow.
I don't know why. There's a vibe. Mists has a vibe. And it has nothing to do with the actual experience, because a lot of people stink on mechanics in Mists. So it's not always perfect, but there's just a vibe that I like when it comes to Mist of Tyr Scythe. Least favorite, though, this season rotationally. Oh, easy. Siege of Borealis. Oh, my gosh. If I can get 3K rating without even touching that dungeon, I absolutely would. Whatever it takes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I did it with the guildies, and I don't know if we ever. Oh, we did, but it took us like 12 pulls on the final boss to finally get in.
Oh my
Mythic
goodness.
0.
Yeah, I didn't get around to doing Siege or Grim.
Okay.
So I can't really say much about those.
Grim's not too bad. I think Grim's kind of fun right now.
Out of the four like War Within ones, it's not that I don't like Dawnbreaker. I think Dawnbreaker has cool mechanics. Like it's like that WoW factor. It's like, oh, like this is a really neat dungeon. Like this isn't your run of the mill dungeon. You like run through, slap trash, and kill bosses, right? Yeah. Like there's like a little bit of like, little bit of nature to it. You got to go through it. There's cutscenes, air quotes. You got to fly with the last boss to like the second zone, like phase 2 of the fight.
Yeah, like intermission phases, right? That last boss has an intermission phase where you fly. And even the first boss kind of has those sort of intermission phases.
Yeah.
When the explosion goes off, yeah. I
think if that dungeon wasn't so buggy right now and like just weird, like in like its tuning and its like just overall bugginess, I'd probably say that that's my favorite. But I'm also vibing with Stone Vault. I kind of like the Stone Vault.
Stone Vault's good. People were giving it a hard time. Like I could see some of those bosses, especially that what I do as the first boss. I don't know if others do as first boss, but it's the pair that you fight with like all the lava around you and stuff.
Yeah,
I could see that fight being brutal. I mean, I was doing it on M+, but I was doing it on low M+ on beta. And we were getting it. Like, once people had the rotation of it, we got it. But that was the one boss. Like, when groups would wipe. Oh, I guess it's second, right? Because you have that golem that you do first.
Yeah.
When groups would wipe, though, like, that was the fight that they would wipe on when I was doing M+. So I can definitely, especially once you start pushing up to, like, +10, I can see that fight being real brutal.
It's going to get rough.
Yeah, and there's just so much stuff happening on the floor that you have, like... It's not a fight where you can react to things. Like if you're if you're not in the right spot before the thing happens, you're toast. So for example, there's one where one of the guys brings the big iron block to the middle, and then it shoots out on Mythic. It shoots out these like magma waves, and so if you don't know where the safe spots are, because magma waves always shoot out to the same spots. If you don't know where the safe spots are, they don't indicate where they're gonna be. You're toast. So you have to know that fight before you go in.
That one is a little rough.
Yeah, So if that one's your favorite though, what would you say like your least favorite dungeon is?
So this is a hot take too. I like Necrotic Wake, but I'd say I like Necrotic Wake. I don't think it's up there. I like the I like the general feel of Arakara, but I just think I think it's kind of boring. Like
Mm,
it's kind of that like run of the mill, like go through and just kind of slap things and kind of do things in order. And if you have like crappy people and you kind of screw up the trash between the first and second boss, like that's just a bad time. Like
yeah.
once you have those screechers go off and like it pulls like literally all the trash, you're just like, this is awful. Like that is gonna be so bad on M plus.
Oh, absolutely. And when I was
Like
testing it on beta, I was
awful.
lucky enough that everybody on beta kind of figured it out and knew what to do. They were like kicking
Yeah.
it, they were handling it. And just to clarify for everybody listening, we're talking about the sentry bug things. They're like the grayish,
Yes.
whitish ones in between the first boss and second boss. And if you don't interrupt them, then they will spawn even bigger, more dangerous ads with them. I think they spawn the blood guards or whatever they're called
Yeah,
with
they
them.
do.
What's the problem though is you can't actually interrupt them. So
Yeah, that's not
you need to use
yeah.
your stops. So anything that like forces movement or stuns them will do the trick.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, as soon as you like force interrupt them, like stop them, they will immediately start casting
They
again. So try to
yeah, it's
save it
just,
near the end of their cast if you can. Things like Death Grip do a great job. Tail Swipe
yeah.
and other stuff are great for just kind of getting that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Then just
that one's
yeah.
hard. And I think that brings me into a good conversational point as well. I was gonna save this maybe for my pro tip later, but I'll come up with a new pro tip when we when we get to that segment. But I think it's important when for anybody listening right now who maybe hasn't started really doing Mythic Plus yet, or has only dabbled in Mythic Plus in the past, but you're thinking about doing it in the future. I would really encourage you that Mythic Plus isn't necessarily the place that you go to learn mechanics.
No.
I would do M0. M0 is a good place to learn mechanics. M0 is a great way
Yeah.
to kind of observe things. But I would really encourage you, and to be clear, there will always be learning. You're always going to see things, especially as M plus gets more and more difficult. You're going to see things that you're like, oh, I didn't know that was a problem. I'm going to start handling that now. So of
Mm-hmm.
course that's going to happen. But as best as you can for M plus, you want to go in prepared. So we got 1 week until
Oh
M
yeah.
plus starts. I have off work tomorrow, and I'm literally, I guess it'll be Monday. I'm off work, and I'm literally just wrapping up the last of my M plus guide videos that I've been working on to get those out. So shameless plug there. If you want, you can use mine. Mine are gonna be
Oh my gosh.
mine are like pretty basic and simple to get in. So if you want something more detailed, feel free to go watch other guides. Read guides on Wowhead. Go in maybe with somebody who really knows their stuff and who can do callouts for you. That works too. Whatever your best method of learning is. But the reason why I say that is right now, M0, heroic dungeons, they're all really safe in the fact that you can just go in, and if you die to something a few times, you die to a few times. You're learning the fights, you're learning the mechanics. But what happens is on an M, like let's say you're doing a +3, a +4, +5,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody kicks that or nobody stops
Oh
the
yeah.
bugs from doing their cast, all of a sudden you have another ad that's adding like 30 more seconds onto your timer.
Yeah,
And
bad things.
and now you're like I'm gonna call it what it is, right? Like kind of laziness, right? That it
Yeah.
is what it is. The laziness that kind of led you to say, "Oh, I'm not gonna put any time into learning this," has now caused you to like lower someone else's key, right? If you're running someone else's dungeon, your choice not to prepare yourself has now hurt that player. And that's where I think a lot
Mm-hmm.
of bitterness starts to come in, where you're like, oh, I don't understand why people won't let me do dungeons if my gear's not a certain level, but I should be able to do the dungeon. My gear's good enough. And it's because people get hurt. They bring too many players into their dungeons who don't take the time to learn it, who
Yeah.
ignore all the mechanics, who don't do anything. And I say ignore mechanics, but a lot of times I don't think they just know they exist. I don't think they're
Yeah.
ignoring them as much as they're just fully
They're
unaware
just
of
not
them.
aware. Yeah.
And so that's why players get really picky in their M plus dungeons, because they want people who they know for sure, or at least reasonably can believe that that player is going to be an active part. Because you hit a point in M plus where it's not about your damage, it's not about your healing, it's all about the other spells. Not the ones that like hurt things or help things, but it's the ones that kick things, move things, interrupt things, right? Those
Mm-hmm.
are the ones that become the most important. I
Yeah,
love
dude.
I love playing my Resto Shaman because my Resto Shaman has like 3 different stops
Oh
like built
my
into it.
gosh.
And when I'm healing, I actually think those are my most critical heals because they just have been so important in like helping me keep health balanced. Even though they don't
Yeah.
do any healing at all, they at least stop damage for a few seconds, and that
Yep.
is massive. Although
That
now I
is
guess
huge.
stops aren't interrupts anymore, so that's kind of lame.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah. Yeah, and also
But
by the to the sorry, I went on a rant, and I apologize for the rant. But
that's okay.
but the nice thing too is right now in M0 week, it is an extremely safe space for the most part to be practicing those mechanics, to learn them, to
Mm-hmm.
test them out, because they're going to be the same mechanics in M plus. M plus will just hurt a lot more when they get ignored.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot more. And
Oh, yeah.
don't be that guy that leaves dungeons.
Absolutely. So, Chicken, I kind of want to ask you a little bit. I don't know, have you been doing any renowned farming this week? I know I was working on a bunch the last couple weeks. I haven't touched as much this week.
Not too much. I did the weekly with doing the 10 world quests
Okay.
because that also helped you get the keys.
Oh, is that for real? I should probably do that then. I
Yeah,
have the quest, I
because
just didn't do it.
if you do, I didn't realize this, but the first 4 chests that you get each week gives you one of those coffin keys for the delves.
Oh, that's how that
And
works.
you get the chests from doing that's like locked behind doing 3 world quests, which is really cool because I feel like sometimes they lock those behind like, oh, do like, you know, I think this week it was like, oh, if you want your weekly chest, you have to do like X amount of delves. And like some people just don't like that content. Some people like questing.
No.
Some people literally like that's why they play the game a while. They love doing quests.
Yeah,
And I think it's kind of cool that they gave those people something like, hey, like, you know, here you can do quests to get like a key, you know.
that is awesome.
But they had the weekly this week, you know, do 10 and you get like 2,500 rep for one of the factions, and I did it and I got the 2,500 rep. But really, other than that, I haven't been grinding too much renown because I don't know. It's to me, they don't benefit me as much as they should, in my opinion.
Yeah,
like
dude.
I just don't. Well, I probably do get more benefit out of them than I realize, but I just don't think about it.
No, man, I fully agree. I think I don't renown and like reputation, if you want to call it that, whatever you want to refer to it as. It doesn't make sense to me right now. And I think the reason why it doesn't make sense to me now, if I'm like a race to world first player, right, or I'm ready to try and like slam content as fast as humanly possible, and I'm a Twitch streamer playing 8 hours a day. Yeah, of course it makes sense for me to go and sit there and farm the heck out of renown, right? Maybe even exploit a little bit and risk a ban just to be ready for when heroic raids come out that I'm like more equipped, or mythic raid comes out that I'm more equipped.
Yeah.
The problem though that I see is the gear eye level that the gear gives like isn't really that crazy.
No, it's not.
But the amount of work it takes to get it is kind of crazy.
Oh my goodness, dude.
And
it's
so
nuts.
yeah, so I almost want to say like that doesn't exist for the average player. Like I think renowned farming to me seems like something that the casual player wants to do, wants to kind of work on it. It's something that there's a side of WoW that is like very what's the term for it when you just want to like sit back and just like play a game that just like feels good, kind of like a Stardew Valley vibe.
Oh, like comfy cozy almost.
Yeah, right. Like sometimes WoW's a comfort game, right? Like it's a cozy game, and that's one of the ways that it is, right? When you're just flying around doing some quests, kind of building some around, and yet it's not really like the reward isn't really like benefiting that person because that person's not going to get that reward until they already have better gear from something else later. So the renown, like the amount of work it takes to get that renown feels weird because the only people benefiting it from it are like top 0.1% of players who are like grinding the heck out of it. And by the time anybody else unlocks that renown reward, like they just don't need it anymore.
Nope.
And that feels weird.
Yeah, it's rough because like I remember in Dragonflight, and I was really kind of hoping they'd fix this, but I don't think they did. They when you finished, like when you leveled the renown all the way up, like I'm trying to think of one from last season. What was the main one?
There were the four like I think 4 or 5 Dragonflights, like the blue, the red.
Yeah, the Valdraken one.
Okay. Yeah.
I think was the one that gave you like the most rep through just like general things, right? when you got to the end, they gave you I think it was like the heroic, air quotes, heroic tier crest for crafting, right? So you could get an equivalent heroic piece of gear crafted, right? Just how they have the mythic one, and then your standard, or not keystone spark gives you like the normal level, right?
Yeah.
So they gave you that. They gave you one for free when you hit the max level in Renown. The problem was I hit max level Renown in season 3, and it was still one for season 1. So it gave me like a piece of like 3 or 402 gear, and I'm like rocking like 480 gear. I'm like, this is useless to me. Like, it's literally useless.
Yeah, right. Once next week hits, none of those rewards are going to be valuable anymore.
No.
Everybody's going after other stuff. Other trinkets will be better. Other rings, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense to me why the amount of renown and the difficulty. I do remember at the start of Dragonflight, I was farming the Blue Dragon rep. But you could farm the Blue Dragon rep because they just had a zone with like, remember you would like go kill ads and you could like power up.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a vibe, and a bunch of us would just like group up and run around and do it together.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like the most exciting content, but it was mindless enough that I didn't have to like overthink it. And now I'm sitting here trying to get rep. I'm like, well, how the heck do I get rep? And then you're like trying to do the aura, not the aura card, but like the spider people rep, the whatever it's called. The webs weaving, whatever.
Yeah.
But there's like 3 different factions that you kind of have to rep up, and every time you get your rep up in one of those factions, it counts for across the board. And then I guess every week you have to choose a different faction to. It's weird and it's hard to get. I was like literally just in there with an alt questing days on end. I was getting like no gain on renown. I was like, I'm done with this. This is stupid. I'm not doing this again. I'll just wait. I'm just not. It's not worth it. And so that's why like renown farming just feels weird to me because I don't know. And maybe if it's like, hey, we want to give rewards. I did like in Dragonflight they gave like the dragon colors as rewards. I wasn't compelled enough to really push hard enough to do it, but other people did it because they wanted that. But then to have like gear that's locked behind really high renown, it just didn't make sense because it all of a sudden it became the only time it was valuable is if you were gonna grind the heck out of it week 1. Otherwise, it becomes invaluable. Where I think everything on the renown track should be like pretty valuable all the time. Maybe some early stuff, right? Like maybe renown 6. That they're like, hey, renown 6, if you really push this hard, we'll give you a ring that will give you like a little bit of advantage going into to the week 1 of the season.
Yeah,
cool.
No, that makes so much sense,
right? And then if you get maxed out renown, wow, you get this really awesome sick mount, and it's gonna be really rare because it might take you 2 whole seasons in order to get this. Like right? Like who knows? But that kind of stuff's cool. I think Blizzard shies away though sometimes from like the really big epic rewards for hard work. Nowadays, and I get it too. They want stuff to feel more accessible that players can achieve it. That our time feels respected. It's just one of those odd things.
Yeah,
that it doesn't exist as much anymore.
That does make sense though, because then you have people that are like, "Oh, I don't have enough time because I was grinding and plus and reading, blah blah blah," and like that. Yeah, like okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
but to that point, I mean, that renown doesn't go away. Like your renown for Dragonflight is still what it is.
Yeah,
like
so you can go back
grind
and
it from like a previous expansion. I
but
get
also though,
like,
but by the way though, at end of Dragonflight, remember they offered character boost to level 70, and I never took advantage of this. It was kind of dumb. I should have taken advantage of it. If you bought a character boost for level 70 at the end of Dragonflight, it automatically gave you max renown for the original 4 renown or original 5 renown factions. I think it was.
What?
Yep.
No.
Mm-hmm. Dude, they were marketing it in the BNet launcher. How did you not see that?
Dude, that's fake news.
No, that's real news. That's real news. No, that was a real thing.
No,
I don't know if it's still.
I totally would have done that.
I don't know if it's still an option. I can like go into the BNet browser and check right now while you go into our next topic.
Yeah. No, that's do that because that's kind of clutch if it is.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's still active or not.
Yeah, you check that and I'll start talking about the next thing. Yeah, we been talking about a lot of old stuff, what stuff's basically happened in the past, but by the time this airs, we're going to be at least one day away, if not the day that in my opinion, season 1 really starts. We're gonna have Mythic Raid out. We're gonna have M+ out. People are gonna be grinding. We're gonna have all that stuff.
Dude, M+ is what I'm here for, man. I want that rating.
Yeah, I think everyone's here. I mean, in those terms, though, out of 1 week of data, Blizzard is already like, hey, we're going to tune some stuff. We're going to got these patches. We're going to tune some classes. So the first one, I think, is probably what we'll talk about the most, just because of how it affects Swag and I. Well, it doesn't really affect us. Let's be honest. They are buffing Sane Lane, and they're basically just increasing like the damage that you get from running that Warband, or not Warband, that what's it called? Hero Talent.
Yeah. By the way, before you go any further, I did look it up. So far on their website, it still says Renown system unlocked at Renown 20 for the 4 initial Dragonflight major factions, and Renown 12 with Loam Niffin faction.
Wow, that's pretty crazy.
All right, but keep going.
So they're buffing Sand Lane, which if you are a Death Knight player, you know that Sand Lane is not played. Like that is the
that was the one I was more excited for. I was more
really?
You know me, I get hyper obsessive when I can like boost myself healing on DK.
Yeah,
that
true.
is where that's where I get excited. And Deathbringer's cool. Like I love the mechanic with like the scythe that comes out. It feels really cool. But I love the like feel of being like a blood DK, right? Like I'm vampiric, right? Like that feels like the blood DK role.
No, that's fair. I can get behind that. So I don't know if that'll see an increase. It might. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah,
they might see an increase in play in Sand Lane, because I like Deathbringer, but from what I was told, I was always told that Sand Lane is actually a little better when it comes to defensives. So maybe we'll see people play Sand Lane.
Especially as it gets a little bit harder. Yeah. It's hard to tell right now when this stuff's not totally out, but even then, people were suggesting on beta to do Deathbringer. I like them both. Yeah. Both were fun to play, though. I'm glad it's getting buffed because it needs it.
Yeah, I've never played Sand Lane, so I can't really say much about it, but it looks fun. So yeah, I figured that's the one we'll talk about the most. Demon Hunter, they're doing just some bugs fix. Looks like Druid is getting a pretty big update balance. Looks like it's getting some all ability upgrades. Pharaoh's getting some all damage increases. Resto's getting some all healing increases as well as some damage increases. So Druid's getting some love this week.
Druid's needed it. I think Boomkin was looking bad. Did you see the charts for Boomkin? They were doing worse than AUG in damage.
Oh.
Yeah, worse than AUG. And for our AUG listeners out there, let me clarify. That's not really taking into account all of the buffing that AUG actually does and all the benefit that AUG offers, right? Yeah. The idea with AUG is that AUG should be doing the least amount of damage of any DPS, because they're also offering a lot of other benefits to the group. And in this case, why the heck would you bring a Boomkin when an AUG does more damage and also buffs the group? Yep. Isn't that crazy?
Oh my gosh, dude, that's nuts. Yeah, I hadn't heard that until you just told me.
Wow. Yeah, it's from the raid logs.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, interesting. Maybe that's why they're buffing everything.
Yeah,
but it's only 6%. That doesn't feel like a lot.
No, but 6% goes a long way.
Yeah, that's true.
That goes a long way. Yeah.
Looks like Mage is getting hit. Arcane, let's be honest, Mage is always super good. Arcane's getting a little bit of a hit.
So here, I was listening to I want to say maybe it was the Bench podcast. I want to say,
okay,
and they were joking about that. They were trying to predict that Mage was probably gonna get nerfed on Arcane, but then they would later come back and buff Fire or something. That was
that is exactly what they did. That is 100% what they did. Fire got an all ability increase, and Arcane got a little bit of a nerf.
Yep, Fire's probably gonna be busted now. They're probably just gonna make it busted. But that's a funny thing with Blizzard is they will when it comes to Mage will always be good. There will always be a good Mage spec. For whatever reason, Blizzard cannot let there be a bad Mage spec, and I don't know. There's something to it. I don't know what it is, but there's always a good Mage.
You want to know my general opinion?
Yeah.
I think it is high risk, high reward. I really do. And playing Mage, it is not an easy spec to play. I think it really is high risk, high reward.
Well, especially like Arcane. Arcane is a complex rotation
Yeah,
sometimes. Mm-hmm.
yeah. And I played Frost, and Frost is generally easy for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, you have one big like combo move, and you're kind of just like bouncing in between that with procs and stuff. But I mean, it wasn't like I would never suggest Mage to like a newbie, like never.
Yeah, which is funny
I
because
mean, it was.
mage though is often like that classic fantasy like wizard role, right?
Oh, that too. Yeah, yeah.
Like so many people want to look at me like, I just want to be a mage. But also at the same time, it is not one of the easier specs, especially dude, back in the day when
No.
they had the rune of power, I think it was, where you had to place your rune down and stand on it. And then the
Oh
moment you're
yeah.
like off of it, you have like less damage you're putting out, so you really had to think it through. Mage players are a special breed, but also Blizzard takes care of them really well. So what can you say? What can you
Oh my
say?
gosh.
Any other major tuning?
So before we talked about this, it looks like they're hitting Warrior pretty hard. Warrior looks like it's one of the better specs
Okay.
or better classes in general. Looks like all of it is getting some damage reduction.
Oh,
Warrior's looking pretty good this expansion,
that's
but everything
interesting.
else looks like it's all buffs. I don't think anything else got hit with a nerf other
Yeah.
than Outlaw actually got hit with a nerf.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
and of course your favorite, Ret Pally, got hit with a nice little nerf.
Yeah, because
Not
I'm
a
looking at
huge one.
I'm looking at the heroic raid rankings for DPS for like top players. And
Yeah.
yeah, Fury Warrior by far up there. Outlaw's up there, but Fury Warrior has like a good lead over even Outlaw, which is the second best.
Yeah.
Enhancement Shaman though is still looking juicy. Arcane Mage still got nerfed, so we'll probably see like enhancement probably sitting up pretty high.
Yeah, especially since they just got an all ability damage increase.
Enhancement did?
Yeah.
Dude. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, man. Let's talk to our guild. I mean we already had like what 3 enhancement shamans at our last raid night.
Yeah.
Can we like double that? Can we double it and pass it along? Can we get 6 enhancement shamans?
Double it and pass it along. You want to double it or pass it along? Yeah.
Yeah.
So sounds like if you don't have an arcane or if you don't have an enhancement shaman, you better make one.
Been interesting. So
So
fascinating.
yeah.
Yeah, I love
That
I love
looks
those.
like
Yeah, thanks for the update on all the tuning going on. That's a big deal, especially because we had some notes on tuning that was coming out in the 0.5 patch. So it's nice to see though that they're still putting some tuning out right now before Race to World first starts. Because remember, on Tuesday, that's where everything is exciting with Race to World first, and I'll definitely be watching. We'll see if I end up just watching on stream or just watching on my own. We'll find out what happens, but. Dude, I kind of want to wind down. We've been talking about maybe some more competitive stuff, some more engagement things, but just to like talk to you personally, right? Like this season, I know you're playing your DK. I'm playing my DK. We both play Blood. Are there any other characters you're enjoying right now? Anything else that you're having fun with?
I literally have not touched a single character other than DK.
Really? Any plans for something else?
Yeah, so it's kind of weird because I don't know if you've noticed this, but we both main the same class as well as in the past couple seasons we've alted the same class.
Yep. Yeah. Well, when did I alt last season?
I would hard press that you alted Monk last season.
That's right. And I've been kind of alting Monk this season as well a little bit.
And I typically alt Monk as well.
That makes sense. Yeah, but I think because you do Mistweaver Monk, right? And I tend to do Brewmaster Monk, so it works out.
I do Mistweaver, yeah. So I like Monk because it gets me out of like the damage realm and more into the healing realm.
It gives you another option.
Yeah, and it kind of lets me see that side of gameplay. But I mean, to be honest, a lot of it depends on how tanking feels this season. And how DPS feels. Oh well, it's more how DPS feels. I might actually work on my mage a little bit as well.
That could be fun. That could be a lot of fun.
Just because I mean it's mage. It's mage is fun. I will say that. If you have experience playing WoW and you want like a fun challenge, mage is it. Like
Mage is getting all the
class.
shout outs today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
that makes sense though.
So it's probably going to be one of those two. But I'm not probably even going to touch an alt for at least another 2 weeks.
That makes sense.
Like,
I've already got my Brewmaster. I think I told you I have my Brewmaster ready to go for our first night of raid, just in case.
Oh yeah, you did tell me.
I wasn't sure. I think I'm preferring DK, but also Brew's been really fun to play. It's just different. It's just a different play style, which has been really nice. Gives me 2 tank options. I should get my Resto Shaman leveled up so I can have like a healer option as well to go. That would probably be a good alt. But right now, Blood DK, Brewmaster Monk, and then we'll see where we go from there. I have my prop palette leveled. It's just not geared. So it's just sitting there, ready to go if I need it. Dude, I like tanking, man. What can I say? I'm a
dang, isn't you got 3 tunes at 80? Holy cow, man!
Hey, man, I hate to break the news to you. I think I'm on the low side for a lot of people.
I know you definitely are.
Yeah, I'm on the low side. I'm on the low side for a lot of people. I want to do a new segment with the podcast with you, Chicken. As we're starting to wrap up, we're kind of getting low on time, and we got some questions coming in from our listeners as well. So I want to ask you, like, I think it'll be really cool if each time we chat, going into that next week, if there's a pro tip that you have. I think if both of us kind of bring a pro tip that our listeners can say, oh, wow, I could actually utilize that. That's a tool or a strategy or just something funny I didn't even know about. It doesn't always have to be a super serious pro tip, but just something that you're like, this is valuable information to know.
Yeah, so I think this week is going to be a big grind, and my tip for this week, and it's not really this is probably going to be the only tip that isn't more technical and less. It's less technical and more just like something that you should probably do this week because I think it's going to really affect. Most people know start of expansion, the economy in an expansion is like awful. Like you're spending like oodles of gold to do something. And I think this week is going to be at the peak because people are going to be, buying up everything they can to try to make big M+ pool or M+ pushes to make those mythic raid pushes. So personally, I think this is the best week to try and farm gold as much as you can. And I think the 2 best ways of doing it is either just loading up on herbalism and mining and just you don't even have to make a day out of it. Just if you're flying around, you see something, just grab it, sell it quick. I mean, you can make, I think I've seen people make like 50K gold off of like not that many mats. Like you can make a lot of money off gold off mats right now. And the second way is actually it's not a super fun way, but it's an easy way if you're good, and that's just running a heroic dungeon with the like preferred. What is it called? It's not preferred. It's like when they need someone.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, like if it's a role that's like in need and they give you the little bag and the bag has
because those runes are going to go up in price a lot. I'm pretty sure they're sitting around 2K a piece. So that's an easy like 5K right there.
Oh, because you know, like Race the World First Skills are buying them up.
Oh, and they'll go up in price. Like I guarantee you. I'm pretty sure Dragonflight at the beginning of the season they were like 5K a piece.
Maybe I'll use that as an excuse to start gearing up my prop pally and just be like, well, I'm just doing it because I'm getting the
and that's
satchels.
Like, yeah, that's like perfect for an alt. Like if you're like gearing up an alt or you want to do leveling on an alt, I'm sure normal dungeons will have that too.
Yep.
Like I think that's a big play for that.
I really do think Heroic is the only one that gives the augment runes. Yes, I could be wrong, but I think Heroic's the only one. What I will say though is you don't necessarily have to be the best tank or healer. If you're doing heroic dungeons and your character's already pretty well geared, just having a character that can multi-spec into something that's a healer or tank, you'll do fine.
Oh, that too.
It might take you 1 or 2 times to feel comfortable, but you'll be fine. Especially if you're already doing like M0 dungeons on that character. It's not crazy to just go the heroic and do something on the
not even a little bit crazy.
No, not too bad at all. All right, so if I have a pro tip,
that's my hot take.
My pro tip was already kind of taken earlier. Originally, my pro tip was going to be like, hey, take some time this week. Make sure you learn the mechanics. Don't just breeze through an M0. Like, make sure you learn the mechanics. However, I already ranted about that earlier. So if you want to listen to it again, you can zoom back into the first like 15 minutes of the podcast or something where I was ranting. So my next pro tip, if I have to find another one somehow, I would say with this rotation dungeons, we have Mists of Tyrna Scythe. Get the Mists of Tyrna Scythe weak aura, right? It might be spyware on your computer. I don't know. I can't confirm it.
Gosh.
It does use a suspicious amount of processing. What I will say though, there's a weak aura that you can get for Mists of Tyrna Scythe that basically solves the second half of the maze for you. So you still have to do the first few levels of the maze, but then the last half of the maze, it'll solve all of it for you. There is a way, like when you run up to the maze, you'll see the little fairy like go in a direction. That will always be the first door to go through, whether she goes to the back one, the left one, the right one, whichever one she goes through, that's the first one you go through. Then when you go through there, I know there's another trick to like instantly know which way to go. I don't know that trick. I'll have to research it myself. But then I think on the fourth one, so you do like the first one's given to you free. I think the second one could be free. I think the third one you actually have to solve on your own. I'm sorry, but that's a healer mechanic. What your healers doing?
Oh my gosh!
What your
You gotta
healers doing?
solve on your own.
And then but then from the fourth one forward, there's a weak aura that actually just like pops up on your screen and goes, "That's the one. Go through that door, and we solved it for you." So, because I think it just uses. I think there's set rotations of like which paths it will take you through. It's not totally random.
Yeah.
And that way the weak aura just knows at some point it goes, "Oh, he's gone through these ones every time. It has to be this path." So
Dude,
yeah, that's super helpful, especially in M+. It
is.
saves tons of time.
Yeah, weak auras.
Weak
Good
auras.
old weak auras.
I think for the dungeon all around, and I know we're kind of starting right out of time, but I think for the dungeon all around, they really just need to like turn on the visuals, right? The little leaf or the flower.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah.
Just have that on
Oh
all
my
the time.
goodness.
It just needs to be auto on. If they really want to be picky about it, make it once it turns on when you walk by it, it just stays on forever. But I think for M+, it should just be always on from the start. That you should be able to walk in and go, okay, I'm looking at the mall, I figured it out. Otherwise, again, it's a healer mechanic. And I kind of say that. I kind of say that as a joke because I have no problem running around doing it when I'm tanking. I don't care. I'll drag the mobs everywhere, whatever. But dude, somebody's walking into the dungeon going, "Healer, what are you doing? Why aren't you solving the mechanic for us? I'm over here DPS in my rotation." And then people go, "I wonder why no one wants to play healer." It's like because you yell at them all the time.
Oh, that's the reason why no one wants to play healer because you're a jerk.
Right? Yeah, dude. Outlaw Rogue Steve over there yelling at the healer because he doesn't want to slow his rotation down to help with the mechanic. Anyways, bitterness aside, we have a couple listener questions popping in that I want to go through. And if you want to leave a question for us to answer on the pod, you're more than welcome to. You can do so through our Discord, or if you want to leave a review, you can leave a review, and with your review, you can, I believe it'll allow you on some of the platforms to also leave a comment with it. Or even just comment. I usually check the comments on our Spotify. So if you comment on the Spotify, I'll probably have to start doing so on Apple Music as well, so I can keep track of them all. With that said, though, we have 2 comments coming in from Discord. So our first comment comes from Izanami on our Discord, and he asks, "What would the implications be with Xal'atath?" Wait, I read that wrong. What would the implications if Xal'atath was indeed absorbing the remnants of the old gods N'Zoth, Cthulhu, Yogg-Saron, and the Black Blood, which is presumably Yashar. I always get his name, Yasharj. Right. So there's a theory that he alludes to. I can explain all. It's kind of complicated. I can explain all. There's a theory that the Black Blood has something to do with the old gods, that it came from the old gods. So I don't know if you've noticed in the Spider Zone. I always forget the name of it. But the Spider Zone, there's that like Black Blood stuff we've been dealing with. It was that second boss we were stuck on in Heroic was Black Blood.
Oh yeah.
And so there's Xal'atath has been harvesting this Black Blood and using it on the Nerubians that we talked about last week to transform them into these like ascended Nerubians. They look a little bit more human. They stand upright. They don't have like big old spider butts on them for the most part.
Big old spider butts.
Right. And so outside of the raid boss, and so but there's this question of like, what if Xal'atath is also using that Black Blood on herself as well, because we don't really know exactly what Xal'atath is, but we know she's related to the old gods, right? Is there a possibility? And I've heard theories that like Xal'atath is trying to turn herself into an old god of sorts. So the old gods
Okay.
were, I think I've explained before, but they're these creatures flung from the void. So they were from the void realm, kind of like the shadow realm, but Shadowlands, but a void land. They were flung from there, and their goal was to go to planets and infect them. And if the planets had a world soul, they would convert that world soul into like a void titan type thing, right? So this monstrous void being. And so our planet, Azeroth, had like 5 of them. And so we had to kind of slowly kill them all. And that's the question right now is like, could Xal'atath be using the old god's blood to empower herself, turn herself into an old god, or get stronger somehow? And that's a great question. We know that the next expansion is going to be called Midnight, and it's most likely going to come out of us losing at the end of this expansion. There's like a good chance that we're either going to lose at the end of this expansion, or we might never see Xal'atath again. Like there's a good chance, like for the rest of this expansion, it is non-Xal'atath related problems, and we won't see Xal'atath until like the very end of the expansion, when all of a sudden she like blows something up somewhere, and we're like, oh crap, now we gotta go over there. Next expansion,
Like, we lose,
right? Next expansion.
no.
So I definitely think Xal'atath is empowering herself by absorbing these remnants of the old gods. I just don't know what that ultimately means or what that ultimately implies. I kind of like the idea of Xal'atath trying to become an old god, but also Xal'atath is this iconic character now in WoW that if all of a sudden like she just transforms into, if you've ever seen the old gods, they're just ugly. They're just covered in eyes or teeth or tentacles. Like they're just kind of weird and they're big and they're ugly. And half the time you fight them from inside of them. And so it just wouldn't. I feel like it wouldn't be great marketing for Blizzard to just kind of throw that out there as the way we killed Xal'atath. I do think we really probably should be killing Xal'atath in whatever form Xal'atath is in currently, or have it like a phased fight. So I don't really know if I'm being honest. If I'm being honest in responding to this, I'm excited to see where it goes. I do think though ultimately that Xal'atath is using this to empower herself. I really do believe that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I agree.
Chicken's like, I don't know, Laura. I don't know, man.
Literally everything you just said.
This is a swag question. This is a swag question right there. But it would be cool.
Everything you said.
So when Xal'atath was still a dagger, she would often like allude to having been around with the old gods. Oftentimes, even making fun of them at sometimes and calling some of them weak or whatever. And so there really is we don't know fully what her connection is to the old gods. She could have even been an old god at one point before being shoved into the dagger. We actually just don't know. We just really don't know. It's going to be really interesting. We're going to find out more. I think we're going to have our minds blown though, as again, because we have 3 expansions for this to be developed, they get to do some really cool stuff. And then our second question coming in from Array on Discord as well says, do a newbie show, teach all the slang and go over what everything is. Which tunes are your favorites and why? So to the first part of that question, I would love to do a newbie show. However, currently I also have a lot of content out on YouTube and in my Discord helping new players understand different lingo and concepts. And so I don't know if we'll ever do a show around it. Maybe one day we'll film something and use it for YouTube as well for people to go back to and find.
Yeah.
It could be fun. However, what I can say to that second part of the question though, right? Which tunes are your favorites and why? We kind of talked about our alts, right? So a lot of times people say tunes, they mean their alts. We kind of talked about our alts earlier. So why don't we talk about like favorite lore character? If you had like a favorite character in WoW lore, did we talk about this? No, we talked about Leroy Jenkins. You knew Leroy Jenkins before.
Leroy.
Yeah. But I have a feeling, right? If you were talking about your favorite character, who would it be?
Hey, I want you to guess. What do you think?
Dude, it's Baelgrim from the War Within. I'm calling it now.
Is who?
Baelgrim. He is the rider that we were helping out at the start of the War Within.
Oh, does this have to be someone from the War Within?
No. That's the only character I know that you're aware of, which is why I picked him.
No, it's not like once you think about mine, you'd be like, oh, well, that kind of makes sense.
Mechatork?
No, I'll let you guess one more time, then I'll just flat out tell you.
King Mechagon?
That would be pretty close.
I got nothing.
I think my favorite is the Jailer.
What?
I just
Who
think
the
he's
heck
got
has
cool
ever picked the
design.
jailer as their favorite WoW character?
Dude, I just think his design's really cool. I don't think anything about the lore is cool with him. I just think he's got a cool looking design.
That's fair. That's
And
fair.
he's got that cool mallet, dude, or
He does
that
have a
cool
cool mallet.
maul.
Chat, viewers, listeners, chat, whatever we're doing right now. Hear me out. Chicken has a love for Shadowlands like armor sets.
Oh, dude, they're so cool.
He has
That's
a
the
love.
only good thing.
He has a love. Listen. If Shadowlands has no fans, it's because Chicken's dead. All right, that's all I can say. That's all I can say there. If Shadowlands has no fans, it's because Chicken's dead.
Dude, Shadowlands. Dude, come on. They do have cool armor sets. You can't tell me they don't.
No, dude, they absolutely do. They absolutely do. No, but it is a great question though too of like favorite WoW lore characters and whatnot. Oh man, I feel like there's just so many like I really appreciate. I think are really awesome. Velen, I think maybe is my flavor of the day for today. I think Velen's a cool character, and I think it's because I wanted to see more of him. Chicken's probably like, who the heck is Velen? I've never heard of this guy.
No
before.
idea that.
He is the Draenei leader. So he leads the Draenei. He's like
Oh,
thousands
okay.
and thousands and thousands of years old, like insanely old dude.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, he's kind of like a prophet. He's really cool. He hasn't really done anything lately, and I kind of want to just see one day where Velen just does some like epic stuff, like just really gets like fights and does something cool. But yeah, dude, I thought for sure you were gonna say Baelgrim, and I was hoping you would say Baelgrim because it kind of leads into where I want to close the podcast out with today. Listen, I want WoW to bring back shaman tanks. I started WoW playing a shaman tank forever ago, back in the end of like vanilla WoW, right at the start of Burning Crusade. I was playing a shaman tank, and I loved it. It was my pride and joy. And guess what? Baelgrim, canonically in-game, is categorized as a shaman. But when you do like a follower dungeon, I think it's a follower dungeon with him, there's some reason you go into the rookery with a pre-organized group. And Baelgrim is the tank.
Oh, really?
Despite being a shaman, he is the tank. So all I'm saying, either WoW is torturing me.
Maybe that's a hint.
Or they're hinting at something coming out in the future.
Uh-oh.
But either way, I'm looking forward to it. I'm also looking forward to another podcast with you next week, Chicken, as we dive into more WoW, especially after M Plus opens up and we have another week of raiding to talk about some cool stuff going on.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, guys, thank you again so much for listening today to the Warband podcast. It is so exciting to be continuing this and to have a lot of fun talking about some of our favorite things in the world of Warcraft. Don't forget to, rate us on Spotify, Apple Music, or whatever podcast platform you are listening to. And, of course, the Discord link will be in the description if you want to come join us and talk about WoW throughout the week. But my name is Swag. Chicken's here with me. And what did we do last week? Was it just like /exit?